Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip,
And I'm CJ.
and it is Hump Day in the Riv. And boy, we got a ton of
And I
things
want
to
to
do.
apologize to our YouTube viewers who are having a problem for some reason with getting the startup on YouTube. Everything else is fine. It is live on YouTube now. It's been since the end of our intro, but I'm sorry about the delay.
But it's not our fault. It's YouTube's fault. We're going to blame.
That's
We're
right.
going to
That was
blame
YouTube's fault.
politicians for it.
That
We'll
wasn't
blame
ours.
everybody else. Hey, we just look. CJ just logs in there. If we don't get it on, it's a technical glitch that we can't do anything about. So it is what it
I was
is.
fixing it.
But Well, let's start off. I'm going to get to the school department. We got so much stuff on us, but let's start with the MBTA. Promises made, promises broken. I hate to say we told you so, but you people just believe. You keep drinking this Kool-Aid year after year after year. I mean, let's face it, people. Kenny Fiola has been in charge of economic development in this city since the 1980s, with a short break where he wasn't attached to the city because Jaysville bounced him. And he almost went bankrupt when he didn't have the city to lean on, and everything being filtered through him because of his connections. All these promises he made, I'll go back to when I was on the board of Heritage State Park. And if I'm lying, Kenny, come on. I was on the board of Heritage State Park, one of the original members of the board on Heritage State Park, when Ken Fiola presented the carousel and said it was going to be a amazing, absolutely amazing tourist attraction. And it was going to bring in 500,000 tourists and everything else. And Mark Sullivan, rest his soul, who used to run CFC, laughed at him and said, "You're telling me we're going to get 500,000 people to stop on their way to the Cape to ride derby horses? You're crazy." And that's what we used to call them in the old days, derby horses. So I guess that was from the Irish Derby. You know, they have a derby, and the horses going around. So if you've ever seen a quiet man, you know what I'm talking about. All these promises. And when we got the battleships, there was going to be billions of people down here to look at the battleships. And just people that occasionally show up. But listen, these people just want to make money. 13 or 14 years ago when he started this show, we said, follow the money and do your homework. Follow the money. They've been making promises since the 1980s, and the city has gotten progressively worse. They're like the Democrats. We're going to make your life better, and instead, it's worse. But, I mean, this is absurd. The MBTA, we told you. We didn't tell you. We showed you. Colin and Nelson made a great presentation, Channel 5 television news clips, newspaper articles about what a total unmitigated disaster the T is. Cities and towns all over the state doing nothing but complaining about what a waste the T is and how it actually hurt their economies and hurt their communities. But no. You're going to listen to the oracles at Delphi. They're going to tell you the truth. For the first time since 1980, they're going to tell you the truth. The propagandists at the Sterile News. But now the Sterile News came out, an article, this new guy apparently actually is not afraid to write a little bit with some information from other areas that actually scrutinize the MBTA. So CJ, I know you dove into that article, so why don't you take it away and tell everybody that we got bent over again.
It's rather interesting. Dan Medeiros wrote the article, and the Sterile News has not been one of my favorite news organizations, but Dan has been doing a really good job on the articles he's been writing. Very little, if any, propaganda. And he wrote an article about how the MBTA commuter rail will not, or may not, shouldn't say will, may not be fully developed. In other words, what we're getting is what we're getting. The initial plan for the commuter rail was to bring it through a different channel, which would have been shorter and more effective. And it was supposed to be an electric line. But because that was going to cost $3 billion and it was going to go through a swamp, the Hockomocket Swamp, they decided that it was better to go the route we're going, which is a haphazard route. But once again, Fall River's second best. They said that the full build of the commuter rail will be by 2030. Guess what? According to Transit Matters, they don't believe that the MBTA is going to be able to afford a full build out, which means Fall River will only get one train station instead of two, which means we're going to take longer to get to Boston instead of the short route, which went up by Stoughton. Instead, we got to go up the line we're on, merge into a track, which also is where New Bedford merges in, because when it comes from Middleborough, it forks out. So one side goes to Fall River, the other side goes to New Bedford. So that's one hiccup. So then you got to merge in there. Then you get into Middleborough. And in Middleborough, you now have a station which has been working for a number of years. And actually, this new station's only been for maybe 2 years because they rebuilt the station to accommodate the trains from New Bedford and Fall River, costing more money. And that route through Middleborough will take you through Bridgewater, Quincy Adams. You know the route. It's going to take you in the long way. Now, they say 90 minutes. But, according to sources, not the Herald News, it may take even longer than that. Because the South Station, where the train goes, doesn't have enough track space or dock space to handle all the trains. So the train may be waiting on the track for its turn into the station. So a 90-minute trip may turn out to be 120 minutes, 2 hours. I don't know. But again, Fall River takes the back seat. Fall River gets second best. And you keep drinking the Kool-Aid thinking, well, at least second best is better than nothing. No. Fall River shouldn't be less than. Fall River shouldn't be less than everyone else. We should be getting what everyone else is getting when they're getting it. Not when they decide to give it to us, but when they're getting it. It's time for Fall River to be brought up to the 21st century and not being treated like we're some, ragtag fleet of idiots. Although, the way you people keep following some of these politicians, I'd have to agree with that.
Well, okay. Let's get a smack of reality here, okay? Fall River always gets second best, but it's irrelevant. I don't know what boneheads, when they sent them down here, listen to their crap. Everybody knows the T is a failure statewide. It is on the verge of bankruptcy. It's going to fall off a cliff. There's going to be all kinds of changes, and ultimately, you'll probably see the T statewide fail and become back to what it originally was, a metropolitan Boston transit. system. They're going to shut down everything from places like Fall River, the Cape, out into Western Mass. They're going to shut everything down because they can't afford it. They can't do anything right. They keep changing leadership, come up with different plans, go left, go right, go up here. Well, maybe we'll cut weekend service. We have to raise the prices. Listen, this thing is a mess. It's a freaking mess. It's like the bullet train in California that cost $100 billion and it's not there. It doesn't run. Never ran. This is what government does. People are continuing to get rich, and they're going to keep this thing on life support as long as they can. So people like the developers that are running around in Fall River now making money, getting a lot of money, and the powers to be in Fall River getting all their fees and getting rich. I won't be alive when it fails, probably, but I'll tell you what. I'll leave a $100 bet with anybody that wants it, and then my kids can collect it. Because ultimately fail. It's not going to fail. Even under the best circumstances, Fall River will see what happened down the Cape. You're not going to have the ridership. If people are making average median income's $30,000 a year. You got that yo-yo Coogan. Yeah, we're going to go to the baseball game. Oh, yeah, everybody in Fall River that's living on 30 grand or 50 grand as a family of 4 average, going to take the 4 people up to Fenway Park. Yeah, try to go to Fenway Park. See how much the ticket prices are. See how much the hot dogs and the beers are. So that we already did it. It's $500 or $600 plus all kinds of time getting up there. Like CJ said, listen, I've been on the red line now as it exists many, many, many times. When we had arbitrations in Boston and we knew we were going to be stuck up there all day and we didn't want to fight the traffic in and out, we used to go up to Quincy, Adams, or Braintree, or Quincy, depending if they were full, and take the T in from there so we wouldn't have to fight the Boston traffic. At least we'd be past the split. I don't know how many minutes and hours and half hours I waited on a track with the current red line, which basically only has one Ashmont spur coming into it. I know the T. I spent a lot of time on the T. It's a shit show at best. Run by a bunch of politicians who give people big money that are incompetent, and the T, since its inception, has done nothing but go downhill. So that segues us into, don't believe anything you read, do your homework, follow the money. You can't even count that high with how much money the T is in, okay? The numbers...
And no, the T is bankrupt. They're bankrupt. Without the state money, they would have nothing. Their ridership and their fares aren't covering their bills. They are behind the 8 ball on safety. They're behind the 8 ball on track remediation. They're behind the 8 ball on everything. The T is bankrupt. They need $400 billion with a B dollars to bail them out, and nobody has it for them. The feds don't have it. The state don't have it. We're bankrupt. It's a failed enterprise.
No, absolutely. And you just hit that nail right on the head, CJ, when you said, what did you say? Their fees and their ridership doesn't support it. So it can't function. The state will stop giving the state
discounted fares. And they keep creating discounted fares like it's going to attract people. It's not.
It's like running a restaurant and charging $2 for a hamburger that costs you $12 to serve. Well, you're not going to stay in business very long losing $10 on a hamburger, whatever hamburger you sell. These people are insane. You don't think ultimately what's the state going to do? The state's going to go, hey, we're not going to give you money every year to subsidize your budget. And they're going to go, well, they're going to tell them, raise your rates, cut your services, do what you got to do to fund your own system. That's why I say, I'm not guessing here. This is a logical assumption. Ultimately, this T, you will see, end up the way it originally started as a local metropolitan Boston. Yeah, it will sink in Boston. It will sink. But look, this is the propaganda mechanism that these people go. I still cannot believe how people in Fall River, every time they make fun of us down here, it's almost justifiable. Because what the people in these other cities and towns that have been pissing and moaning about the T for years, it's all over Channel 5, it's all over the news media. They're laughing at it. Look, these people think it's good. What's wrong with these people? They think we're all brain damaged down here. We're all brain damaged. This is nuts. Okay? This is nuts. So, we've had enough about the T. It's here. They're going to take every dime they can from the people. All the developers and all of the elitists are going to make all the money they can.
And just remember, the T has lived off the state taxpayer, including the taxpayers in Fall River, for years, decades and decades and decades. And the state's position has been, we have to fund the MBTA because that is responsible for all the traffic in the greater Boston area. Why do the people of Fall River, why do the people of Springfield have to pay for the MBTA? Why? Because the politicians can't manage money. Yeah. And the MBTA just sees the politicians as their bankroll. And that means the taxpayer is the ATM machine.
And, politicians say it's the traffic. Listen, the Big Dig was supposed to fix the traffic. Remember that? The second largest public boondoggle in the history of mankind, the Big Dig. Traffic is worse in Boston now. I've been traveling to Boston since the 1980s to go up there for arbitrations and court cases. The traffic got worse after the Big Dig. Not better, worse. And during the Big Dig, it was a horrifying nightmare to go up there. Every day you drove to Boston, there were different detours. People were getting lost all over the place that didn't know how to get around in inner city Boston. Listen, these people lie, and it's crazy. And remember, CJ, maybe you and I are some of the few people that have memories. Remember what they also discussed. Having the entire state, even those who didn't have T service, start beginning to pay for the T, just for the fact that you just said. They're saying, screw you, we're going to keep this running. Not because it's going to do anything to the traffic, because I still go to Boston a lot. And I'll tell you what, it is hell. T, no T, T broken down, doesn't make any difference. They're doing it because that is the repository for every single politically connected dud that they can't get into the lottery commission. This is where the politicians stick all their friends and relatives for jobs. The T employs a lot of people. And most of them were put on because of their political affiliations. So with that, I'm sick of talking about that. We've told them that, Colin, and I went to that presentation. It was a great. They had great facts, a great presentation of facts. Nobody cared. Go listen to the yo-yos that have been lying to you since 1980. Oh, the Derby horses are going to make you rich. Don't worry about it. This is absurd. It's absolutely absurd. And with that, if you want to wrap it up a little bit, but I think we should get into the school department. We got a lot.
I think we wrapped it up. I think we got enough of the trash. I mean, the tea, not the trash.
Yeah, that's it.
But I want to thank Sue Cody. I mean, she brought up a couple of good points. And like they're talking about the tracks already getting flooded out. Well, yeah, and then she mentioned the Flint section of the city. That flood is expanding. And now Plymouth Avenue, expanding. Are they taking this into consideration? Maybe she's right. Maybe we will get canoes. The state will give us the canoes for free. We got to bring our own paddles. I don't know.
The Massachusetts Canoe Authority.
That's right. The MBCA.
Yeah, good point. But now the school department. Well, we've heard about the mold. We're getting all. We do have a lot of sources, and they will always remain anonymous, and we appreciate them. But it's kind of like Washington now. A lot of things are leaking now about the rotting bag of oatmeal that we call a president. Nobody could tell that he was impaired when he fell upstairs and just stared into space and couldn't do anything. So, the Democrats they're mentally defective. They just deny reality. But we're getting a lot more leaks, just like there are a lot of people now are leaking about Biden. Oh, he falls asleep in meetings. He stares into space. He doesn't. Sometimes now he's got to have people in there with him all the time. Forget about the flashcards, the teleprompters. No, it doesn't matter. Look, you got to feel sorry as far as him as a human being, because the extreme. He has either cognitive decline, and now they're talking about Parkinson's, and that's a tragedy. But the man should not be the commander in chief. He should not have the nuclear football. He probably can barely find his way around his own house. He can't find his way on and off a stage without arrows and people helping him. So, but we're getting a lot more leaks. I was told, and I don't know, we're going to check into it. I was told that we have 12 nutritionists and a supervisor. Why the hell do we need 12 nutritionists? Well, I know why, because Paul Coogan's the mayor. Paul Coogan loves to create jobs. 4 supervisors where there used to be 1 to supervise the same amount of people. 12 nutritionists. What the hell do you need 12 nutritionists for? I mean, nutritionist does what? Review the menus? You couldn't have like 1 or 2. I think we used to have only a couple. Now we got 12. Wherever Paul goes, jobs follow that we don't need. Jobs in places we don't need. This is the kind of thing we hear about. And we have to check into that one. And then the big one, the mold remediation. We're going to stay tuned for next week. We could have I'm going to give you a little hook to make sure. We are supposed to be getting some very, very damning proof of the fact, although I think it's now been accepted since they've admitted they knew about it and didn't do anything about it. This really puts the nail in the coffin. If this is as damning as it appears to be, we are going to hand this over to the only 2 school committee men that I would trust, even 1 iota. That would be Colin Dyers and Kevin Aguiar. We will send those pictures to them, because this is outrageous. We have children getting sick, teachers getting sick, and we knew it. And Ken Pacheco admitted it. Yeah, I'm going to take the blame. He's going to take the hit for the supervisor. But we also know that Ken Pacheco wants a new contract and his salary elevated to $150,000. So my question to you is, what's the price of taking the hit for the team? He took the hit on the 22 windows. He should have been fired when he was on the city side. When he went before the council and says, I know who did it, but I'm not going to tell you. City council said, you don't want to tell us who did this? You want the taxpayers to eat this money? You should be gone. Gone. See you later. Go. Bye-bye. No. They slid him over to the school department, gave him a bigger job with more pay. Now he's going to look for another hit in his paycheck. He's going to look for another one on a new contract. Word is he's looking for 150 grand now for taking the hit. All my fault. Well, you shouldn't get 150,000. You should get bounced. This thing has been going on for a very, very long time, and we know it now. And you did virtually nothing. And I think what we get may prove you actually tried to cover it up, like you always do in the school department. This is not only outrageous, it is a health hazard. What you did is criminal. You exposed these people to a health hazard. Oh, and that's the other one we heard. We got to check into. So, any of you school committeemen who are watching said we have 2 HVAC people working and neither of them are licensed. What's with that? Aren't HVAC people who are working in a public building, shouldn't they have a license? See, these are the kind of room, and we're going to say they're room. We're not saying it, but these things have to be checked. But when you give it to the school department and the school committee, they hide it, they bury it as long as they can. But now this mold thing is out. But this is a serious issue, and I'll let you take out the health because you got your PhD in the mold remediation was intentionally slowed down, take off. They should have done, and I'll segue with this, and then I'm done. To show you the difference between mayors, and I'm not that big a fan of Mitchell, but he's a lot better than him. He worked on affordable housing, but I tried to get that thing, CJ, and on the 7 o'clock section of 10, they didn't run it. I taped it. I watched it twice. They didn't. But they had a shooting in New Bedford, and you know what Mitchell did? Went on TV, and you can fill in the gaps on that one and then switch back to the remediation.
Well, mold in a building, your home, a school building, a mill, a mall, a store, wherever it may be, will act as an irritant to your respiratory system. If you have asthma, it can exacerbate or make worse your asthma. People have been known to get pneumonias from bacteria and mold. People have been known to develop severe allergic reactions to the mold. People get headaches. They get swellings. They get hives. They get sick and they can't come to work or go to school. But who cares? It's the floor of a school department. We don't even care. We give people a D and we graduate them. The hell with the D. We'll give them an F. They get a 60. They can pass. They can graduate. They take time off. Well, we'll expand their sick time. We'll give them more PTO. So what if the teachers are working in a detrimental location? Too bad. You don't get paid enough anyhow. We don't care about you. Can't you get that message through your skull? We don't care about you. We're not paying you. This is what happens. And like Chip said, this could be criminal. And if the teachers in those schools, and I got it on good authority, Spencer Borden, Lacherno, the green. As a matter of fact, with the green, you can see the truck right out in front of it. Okay, the green. And from what I understand, there's several other schools in the city which are having mold problems, and we're not being told about them. And the only reason why the city started doing something about the mold problems is the Massachusetts Teachers Association and the Fall River Educators Association got involved and started making a stink. Hey, Paul, you're supposed to be a teacher. What? You don't have any loyalty to your comrades? You don't have any loyalty to your colleagues? That's bull. That's absolute bull. But hell, you work in the school department for 30 years. Nobody cared about you because you kept your hands in your pocket and you kept doing high fives with the students and not maintaining any discipline. And as a matter of fact, telling students, why don't you just leave because you're not going to graduate? Why don't you butch it up? We don't need that in the schools. That's what you stood for, and that's what you still stand for. Cloak and dagger, hide it all, cover it up, paint over it. Why remove it? Paint over it. Makes more sense. It's cheaper. Can of paint's what? $34? $34. Paint over it. Not a big deal. So what if people get sick? The city has to pay for it. We don't. So what if people get sick? So what if people can't go to work? So what if students are having asthma attacks in the school because of it? So what if people are getting severe allergic reactions? What do I care? I'm only the mayor. I don't care. It's not my big deal. That's why I'm the dictator and you are the minions. Remember that.
Yeah. Well, listen, we know Paul's MO. Actually, I spoke to someone a few days ago who told me that they knew someone who, I guess, asked him a question about something, and the first question out of his mouth was, "Do you own a house?" I think he told Nelson that. That seems to be a criteria. Guess what? You don't need to own a house to ask a question about something in Fall River, about housing. Because, I mean, I own a house, you own a house, but the individual he was talking to owned multiple houses, actually. But that's irrelevant because people who rent apartments in these houses are stockholders because they're paying. They're living in the city. They're contributing to the taxes with their rents. And they are citizens of this community. The only people you care about, Paul, by your own words, are my banker friends, my lawyer friends, my developer friends, and my rich friends. If you don't own a house, go jump in the Taunton River. You don't have any standing in this argument, which is absolutely untrue. You are the worst mayor. I'm not talking about Biden. He is the worst president in history. He's destroyed this country, not only the country, but the world. We're on the verge of nuclear warfare. We got 2 wars going on. And it's like, so tall. But in this city, you brought the school department to the city side. You're just handing out jobs, and then you're going to ask us to get a debt override. Well, pick a finger. You know which one I'm referring to. Because I'm not voting for a debt override until you lay off, until you get rid of every single person you hired with opera money and you did not find a revenue source for. You just waited till they're on a payroll and then came back and said, taxpayers, you don't want these people to miss a paycheck. You got to pay them with your money. That's exactly what you've said to us, the taxpayer. And I say, pick a finger. They shouldn't have been on the job in the first place. Just like the contracts that your own CFO, and I'll give you the date, on November 29th, said we can't afford the contracts, the Durfee debt and the Diamond debt. Yet the law says that those contracts are supposed to be fully funded. And we all remember when she said, we're looking at investments down the road, which still aren't, not naming the investment, like playing a scratch ticket. The reality is you've put, what, 60 something on one side, 40 something on the other side with opera money. Now you don't care about funding them like we used to with the safer grants. Now we got to hit, now you're telling us we got to pay for these jobs. Well, the city was running before you put them on a job. Until you get rid of all the consultants, all the dangling participles that you have attached to everybody that can't do their job that you've hired, like the financial analyst. You got a chief financial officer, you need to hire a financial analyst to help. Well, if the CFO can't analyze finances, they shouldn't be the CFO. If we got to dredge up Al Capone again, there's something wrong with this picture. You just hired a superintendent of schools, and I was told by reliable sources they did a poll of which candidate the people who worked in the school department liked the superintendent, and the one you chose finished third. Third, not even second. But you hired her because she's one of your chosen people. But she's got 6 assistant superintendents of schools. Why not? You know, in a real community, they would go, somebody that needs 6 assistant superintendents shouldn't be the superintendent of schools. Pay the superintendent $280,000, not $186,000. Pay him $280,000, and get a super. That'll get you a superintendent from a school department 5 times larger than Fall River that was running it effectively. Because they'd say, "Hey, I'm going to go to a school department that's like minuscule compared to the zoo I'm going in, and I'm only making a couple of grand more. I'll go there and work." And I'll do the right, I'll clean house because I don't know anybody there. But no, this is your life, Paul. Remember that old TV show? This is your life. Political jobs, buying votes, and kissing political ass. And with that, CJ, back to you.
The history of Fall River at its best. Corrupt politicians, corrupt politicians, corrupt politicians. The same people in office for 30 years, and nothing's changed. The same person in charge of economic development, and nothing's changed. The same people running the day-to-day operations, it seems, and nothing's changed. So we're going to reorganize. Because reorganization is what's going to save money. We're going to hire a guy from New Bedford. Bring him in. Make him director of city operations. Give him a $15,000 pay raise because he was hired after the last pay raise was given. So we're going to give him a $15,000 pay raise. What does he do? I've seen him sitting at the city council. Nothing. Crickets. I've even heard that there are claims of harassment against this person. And the city has not done anything about it. Oh, does this sound familiar? Can someone say Matt Malone? It's a pattern of behavior. It's what this mayor does. It's a pattern of behavior. He lies and lies and lies. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take us back to when this show was still in its old broadcast studio. When I read word for word, verbatim, the police report of the accident that involved his wife. And they were totally contrary to the story that Paul was telling. Totally contrary. But couldn't come any better time. Helped during the election, didn't it? We've seen that happen too. I can go way, way back to somebody who was elected as a city councilor. On the day of the election, his house caught fire. And the people felt bad. And they cast a ballot for him. Oh, his house just caught fire. He's in the hospital. Oh, this is a shame. I'll give him a vote. I'll give him a vote. One term. That's all it was one term. But that one term got him a job. Where? Where? Guess. Take a guess. Take a guess. The Fall River Housing Authority, where all dead politicians go, where all political connections go. And if you're connected at the state level, where do you go? You go to the MBTA, or you go to the State Lottery Commission. With do-nothing jobs, with high-paying jobs. High-paying salaries with do-nothing jobs. That's where you're at. That's the way it goes in Fall River. That's the way it goes in the Commonwealth. And when you ask the Department of Revenue a simple question, can the city of Fall River place on the tax bills the debt exclusion? You know what I'm told? If you have to deal with your local tax bill, you need to go to your assessor's office. The Department of Local Services cannot help you. We are here to help the municipal governments and the elected officials. You represent me. Isn't that what our Constitution says?
Well, that means they're disregarding the Constitution that they work under, because they're supposed to be answerable to us. Those people are our agents. So, number one, that's bullshit. But I want to see a law, because he said they couldn't do it legally. But remember one thing. I'm going to draw this as final conclusion. We all know that private industry, but every single reorganization that this city has ever done, and especially Paul Coogan, has resulted in higher salaries and more jobs given out. Where reorganizations in private industry normally mean it's restructuring for more efficiency, people doing more work, maybe getting a pay raise for the more work, but streamlining their operations so they can make more money. See, in Fall River and in political entities, reorganizations are mechanisms to give people jobs, high-paying jobs that are incompetent. They couldn't get a job anywhere else. This is what his reorganization does. We know the guy that used to do oil changes and stuff on school department property, on school department time. Everybody knew about that. Everybody knew. So Paul said, oh, geez, this is getting too hot. I'm going to reorganize. I'm going to give you a supervisor's job, but you got to stop doing oil changes and doing your side work while you're getting paid. You know, just like when he kept they had the issue with the head of security. He was on paid leave for a year so he could get his retirement up. So when he retires, he was on paid leave for doing something that is alleged to be very, very, very objectionable on school property. So all these things we know about, but in the school department, it's like North Korea. But he's brought the school department methodology over to the city side, and he's doing it because he has the cooperation of the city council. So I'll remind those city councilors, with the exception of Michelle Dion, who's always on our side, a few of them are occasionally on our side. I'll remind you of one thing. It's bad enough when they do it on the school side. They hide it, there's no transparency, and they just piss money in a hole. But some of that spending is at least deferred because they get. When you do this, when Coogan comes over from the school side to our side and does the same thing. We're not getting ed reform money. We're not getting money from the state. We need taxpayer reform because we don't get anything you spend supplemented by the state in any way, shape, or form. The taxpayer's got to pay for all these jobs. And like I said, you think anybody that votes for this override is nuts. You should say, you blew all this money. You put all these people on a job. Don't even talk about getting rid of fire and police until you get rid of all these people you hired. With opera money, all the contracts you didn't fund properly, that's on you. I'm not paying for this. Find a way to get the money. And hopefully, but they're going to do everything they can. They're going to propaganda. Oh, the kids. Look, Diamond's going to be built regardless. And I won't use the Fall River double negative. I know a lot of people in Fall River love irregardless. But that's not really a word. It's a double negative. The prefix and the suffix mean no. Irrelevant means not relevant. Irregardless means not with regard. The thing less means the same thing. So it's a double negative. So maybe they think a double negative creates a positive, but that's only in mathematics. So that little lesson was brought to you by someone who doesn't say gasoline. So this is BS.
Fall River.
Yeah. Well, that's a Massachusetts thing. Nobody in Massachusetts says Oz, basically. I can't even say, I can't say R. I have to force myself to say R. Even when I say it's like It's
but at least you know about gasoline.
Gasoline, yeah. Well, a lot of them say, hey, look, I knew a PhD who used to say that. I used to bust their chops all the time. Brilliant girl. PhD from Brown, master's from Brown, head of the political science department at UMass years ago. She married somebody from ESPN and moved to Georgia a while back. She was on a regional task force with me. I used to bust their chops all the time. She used to say gasoline all the time. And I used to say, Rita, I said, you got a PhD. How can you say gas? There's no Z in gasoline, right? And she used to say, that's my New Bedford upbringing. I said, you can't beat it. But, you can laugh a little bit at that stuff, but you can't laugh at when people destroy your city. They're bringing us over, every one of these reorganizations, and now they're going to threaten, they're going to hold this election in the middle of the summer, hope for a low turnout, and hold a gun to everybody's head saying we're going to cut fire and police.
No, the debt exclusion they're trying to get the debt exclusion included on the November ballot.
Oh, that will be better. Well, they're trying.
They're going to try to get it on the November ballot, which will be a presidential election, which means we should have a bigger turnout.
Well, hopefully. Well, all I can say is, listen, the school department has always been like North Korea. Now we got some of North Korea over here. Because think about this. Paul's like mini Biden. You never see him around. Other mayors wander around the city. They have press conference. Like you said, you didn't cover that press conference, but Mitchell went right on there and said, this stuff's going to stop. We're not going to tolerate this in the city of New Bedford, these shootings and stuff like that. We've been getting shootings in Fall River since Coogan's been in office. What did he say? He didn't have a press conference. He just said, told the guy, asked him, do you have bullet holes in your house? Shut up. What do you care about bullets flying around? Only talk to me after you get bullets in your own house. So this is the difference between the two mayors. At least Mitchell acts like a mayor. He interacts with the citizens that he was elected to represent. You never hear from Coogan except when he goes to like Biden getting interviewed by Stephanopoulos. He did a little bit better job because he had to. They're being pressured. But the reality is he only goes to friendly networks like WSAR, We Suck at Radio, or BCC, who threw us off for telling the truth. Oh, they asked us back, though, right? So, but
I never got that request. Only you did. I never got that request.
You never got that?
I never got it.
Okay. Well,
Never got it.
it was a no. It wasn't. I think I didn't even read the email because I just said, pick a finger, you. So to
The
that.
interesting thing was I went online this morning
Yeah.
and I found their new standards.
Yeah.
And while they're direct and they're not a lot of changes from the previous standards, now they added a line that if your broadcast defames or jeopardizes the credibility of the station, your show will be canceled. In other words, you can't talk about politics because it may cost them $100,000 from the mayor. Well, if we have our way, it's going to cost you a hell of a lot more than $100,000.
Well, guess what? I'd almost go back there and do it again, and then have them cancel us again so we can get more money, because that part of their, if somebody takes that to court, that'll get thrown out. Because if you're talking about politicians, you can't be sued, because we've got a Supreme Court decision saying that. So by putting that in their rules, it's like the rules they had at Harvard and Brown and all the rest of the Ivy League wokey institutions that didn't address anything, and if it did, they ignored it. When they were having Jewish students being accosted by other students, not giving them their equal rights. And then they get on there and say, well, it depends on the context. Oh, context. Oh, you determine the context? No, the Supreme Court's already determined context as far as political speech in Massachusetts. We can say anything we want about politicians. And if you throw us off because politicians write you and say, we don't like it, and then you say, well, they're going to threaten us with a lawsuit. They threatened us. I'm still waiting. We got threatened. And they know damn well it was a frivolous lawsuit. The queen of frivolous lawsuit threats threatened us. I'm waiting. I got Rossman waiting in the wings, man. They'll throw that thing out so fast, the head will spin, and then I'll count the sue, and then I'll make sure that every single license is gone from them, because this is bullshit. These people, these institutions, look it, forget it. I got to get off this. We got to close because it pisses me off. We got a Haitian that raped a 15-year-old girl, and they let him out on $500 bail, and they won't turn him over to ICE to be deported. This state sucks.
You're right. You're right, 100%. And just so you know, people, your water bill, even though the water that you are being billed for this month was drawn before July 1st, you're being charged at the new rate. Talk about a ripoff. They said that they bill at the rate at the time of the bill, not at the time of consumption, which I think is bull.
Well, I'm getting a legal opinion on that, and I know they're wrong. I know it's wrong because they're taking advantage of the taxpayers.
That's right.
They're going to give everybody they're going to give all the rich guys tiffs and ties and let us pay, but now they're going to pay a higher rate so they can do this every year. And they've
been doing it every year.
And I know. Well, guess what? We've never been informed of that. But
that's right.
Guess what? Anybody that wants to file a 10 taxpayer suit, let us know, because we will be filing a 10 taxpayer suit, and we'll go to court, and they will not be able to charge us, and that money they already got in their budget's not going to be there. And I'm going to demand what we did with the health care to go retroactively for the money.
That's right.
And I'll get Ernst & Young again when we win to audit the city. And you watch the bill they get. Because it took them, every single city employee and retiree got 3 months free Blue Cross and an $18 premium reduction for the rest of the year. And that was in 91. That was a lot of money they had to pay back with interest. But I'm going to tell you something. If I buy gas today, they can't charge me what they're going to charge next week. Because that's what the gas costs. It's posted.
That's right.
That our water rate was posted.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about our water. I'm going to read you something directly off the water bill. Keep lead free. Run taps 15 seconds at day's first use. This way they can get some more money out of you. Yeah. Okay? That shows you how good our water is. We're ready for that, aren't we? Yeah. That's right at the bottom of your water bill, right above 1.0 CCF equals 100 cubic feet, or 748 gallons.
Well, I'm going to tell you, CJ, I gassed up yesterday at the station on.
You gassed up. You gassed up.
Gas, yeah, I gassed up. I gassed up at the, I feel so Fall River in New Bedford now. God, I said that. It's like, but I gassed up because I noticed that this company owns 3 or 4 or 5 stations, and they're normally the lowest price. They were at $3.19 even for a while, but then I drove by.
Sounds like Supreme.
I drove by Westport. They were $3.29, and I drove by the one on Brayton Avenue, and they were $3.29, and I drove up Eastern Avenue, still at $2.19. Well, I said, shit, I'm on a fixed income. That's 10 cents, man. I'm going in. So I went there yesterday, and they had only 2 pumps open. They were, you know why? They hadn't gone up to $3.29 because they hadn't got their new shipment in, which they're going to pay more for, and they're going to jack up the price with the new. But they didn't even change the thing. It was still $2.19. They could have said, well, we're going to go to $3.29, but I got up at $3.19. Fall River's not going to, make me pay a rate for water I bought when we had a posted rate, unless a court orders me to pay it. And I'm going to court on this one.
The sad part about it is I have been arguing for monthly billing on the water rate forever. Had they billed us on June 30th for the water that was used back then, using their plan that they bill at the rate when the bill is generated, we would have been all set. We wouldn't have had this problem. But that makes common sense. And we don't have that. I want to thank you all for watching. And if you're aggravated, think about us. Stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. You have a great day, and remember, keep cool and stay hydrated. Have a great day. Thank you.